The wine glasses were lit up by the late afternoon sun coming through the floor-to-ceiling windows of our Rosedale mansion. I watched my wife, Hannah, check her phone for the third time in 10 minutes. We had been married for 8 years, and I had learned that kind of quiet. It was the kind of quiet that showed up right before somebody asked for something they already knew was going to put you in a bad spot. Hannah finally spoke without looking up from her screen. "My dad wants us to come to dinner on Friday," she said. "Just family. Mom insists." I set my coffee down. At 62, I was pretty good at hearing what people did not say. Just family meant her parents would spend 3 hours politely reminding me that their daughter had married below what they considered her level. "I will be there," I told her. She looked at me then. Something moved across her face. I could not tell if it was disappointment or plain old acceptance. After 8 years, it still was not always clear. I met Hannah Kingsley 9 years earlier at a charity gala in Toronto. I was only there because my assistant, Kayla, bought the ticket before I could stop her. She kept telling me it was good for networking. Hannah was there because her family had paid for the children's hospital wing. Everybody was celebrating that night. She had on a simple black dress that probably cost more than most people's cars. When she laughed at something her friend said, I found myself walking over before I even thought it through. "I am Brian," I said, holding out my hand. "Brian Carter." "Hannah Kingsley," she said. Her handshake was steady, and her smile felt real. "Are you enjoying the evening?" she asked. "I am enjoying it more now," I said. It was a corny line. I knew it the second it came out of my mouth. But she laughed anyway. We ended up talking for 2 hours, standing near the dessert table while the rest of the gala spun around us. She told me she worked at an art gallery in Yorkville. I told her I was a financial consultant, which was true in the strictest sense. What I did not tell her was the bigger truth. I did not tell her I was the anonymous majority shareholder of Kingsley Industries, the pharmaceutical empire her father ran. I did not tell her I had been quietly buying shares for 6 years through a web of shell companies and offshore accounts. I did not tell her I owned 58% of the company her family had built over 3 generations. And I did not tell her they had no idea I even existed. I kept it hidden for a reason. When I was 35, I made my first million in technology stocks right before the dot-com crash. That should have wiped me out. Instead, I got out at the exact right time. I rolled that money into real estate, then into private equity, and then into pharmaceuticals. By 40, I was worth 8 figures. By 50, it was 9. By 60, I was sitting in a world where the numbers stopped feeling like real money and started feeling like points in some game only a few thousand people on Earth even knew how to play. But I had also watched my first marriage fall apart the moment my ex-wife found out what I was truly worth. Susan loved Brian Carter, the guy who drove a 10-year-old Volvo and wore the same jacket to every restaurant. Susan tolerated Brian Carter, the millionaire with a nice house in Forest Hill. Susan divorced Brian Carter, the multi-billionaire, after she hired 3 different forensic accountants to make sure she got every penny she thought she was owed. The lawyer fees alone ran me $14 million. The betrayal cost me something I could not put a price tag on. So when I met Hannah, I made a decision. I was going to stay Brian Carter, financial consultant. I was going to keep driving my old Volvo, even though I had a Bentley sitting in a climate-controlled garage in Oakville. I was going to wear clothes that looked nice but did not stand out. I was going to live in a comfortable place, but nothing that screamed money. And I was going to wait. I was going to see if someone could actually love me for who I was, not for what I owned. Hannah seemed like the right kind of person. She was smart. She was funny. She cared about her work at the gallery. She came from money, sure, but she did not act like she was trying to coast on her father's name. She had built her own routine and her own pride around it. We dated for 6 months before I met her parents. By the time that dinner happened, I was already in love with her. That first dinner at the Kingsley estate should have warned me. Her father, Robert Kingsley, was 68. He had silver hair and the kind of presence a man gets after 4 decades of running a company worth $30 billion. Her mother, Patricia, was polished and quiet. She watched everything, and her eyes missed nothing. Halfway through the meal, Robert cut into his venison with the neat, careful focus of a surgeon. "So, Brian," he said, "Hannah tells us you work in finance." "Yes, sir," I said. "Financial consulting." "And what exactly does that mean?" he asked. "I help clients improve their investment portfolios," I said. "Are you independent?" he asked. "Or do you work for one of the big firms?" "I am independent," I said. "Smaller client base. More personal service." He nodded slowly, the way a man nods when a kid explains why he wants to be an astronaut. "And how is that working out for you?" he asked. "I cannot complain," I said. "I make a comfortable living." "Comfortable," Patricia repeated, like she was tasting the word to see if she liked it. Then she smiled. "That is wonderful. It is so important to be content with what you have." Under the table, Hannah reached over and squeezed my hand. Back then, I thought she was just backing me up. Now, when I look at it, I sometimes wonder if she was already saying sorry. We got married in a small ceremony at a boutique hotel in Niagara-on-the-Lake. Hannah wanted it intimate, and honestly, I was thankful for that. Her parents paid for everything. That bothered me more than I let on, but it seemed to make them happy, like they were buying peace of mind. Robert gave a toast about how love mattered more than money. While he spoke, I noticed a few of Hannah's relatives trading little looks, like they all shared the same private joke. The first year of marriage went well. We bought a place in Leslieville, a renovated Victorian house. Hannah fell in love with the moment she saw it. It was nice. It was warm. It was not flashy. And for a while, it felt like we might actually be okay. It was exactly the kind of house a guy like me was supposed to have. A successful financial consultant married to a woman who managed an art gallery. A renovated Victorian in a good neighborhood. The kind of place people could nod at and say, "Yeah, that makes sense." I paid cash for it. But on paper, I made it look like we had a mortgage, because I wanted the story to match the picture. Hannah seemed truly happy at first. She would get up early, make coffee, and we would sit out on the back deck while the street slowly came to life. She would tell me about difficult clients at the gallery, and I would listen and give my best advice. In return, I would tell her stories about my work, but I picked them carefully. I left out the parts about the billions. I kept the parts about people, the meetings, the pressure, the decisions. Those parts were real, even if the numbers were not. But around year 3, something started to change. At first it was little things. Small comments that sounded harmless if you did not look too close. She started talking about her friend Ashley, whose husband had just made partner at his law firm. Then she mentioned her college roommate, Brooke, whose husband had built a technology company that was doing great. After that, she tossed out a casual thought about how nice it would be to have a cottage up north, like her parents had. "We could get one," I told her. "There are some affordable places around Muskoka." She turned her head and repeated one word. Affordable. The way she said it made my stomach tighten. It was not really a question. It was a judgment, wrapped up in a single word. And it was a judgment I did not want to face. By year 5, she was not even trying to be subtle. We would be out at dinner, and she would say, "Ashley and Travis are going to the Maldives for 2 weeks." We would drive past a luxury car dealership, and she would bring up how impressive her coworker's new Mercedes was. We would visit her parents, and her father would ask me, with a little more doubt each time, how my consulting business was doing. I kept hoping Hannah would notice what was right in front of her, that I never stressed about money, that I could always pay for whatever she wanted, that I just did not like showing off. I kept waiting for her to wonder how a simple consultant could buy a house with cash, or why I knew so much about pharmaceutical industry trends, or why I sometimes got phone calls that made me step into another room and shut the door. But she never asked, and if she did wonder, she decided not to dig. Around year 6, her father, Robert Kingsley, had a minor heart attack. It was not life-threatening, but it scared the whole family enough to change the mood. After that, Robert started thinking about who would take over when he could not run things anymore. Hannah started spending more time with her parents. And when she came home, she was quieter than usual, like she had something heavy sitting on her chest. One night she told me, "Dad is thinking about retiring in the next few years. He wants to make sure the company is in good hands." "That makes sense," I said. I said it calmly, like a regular husband. But the truth was, just a week earlier, I had shut down a hostile takeover attempt against Kingsley Industries. And I did it with a few calls and a few votes. Because I was the majority shareholder, I had the power to block major corporate moves whenever I needed to. Her family had no clue who was holding that power. To them, the board's mystery investor was some unknown person they could not track down. They had even started calling that person the anonymous backer, like it was a legend. Hannah kept talking. He is disappointed that neither my brother nor I wanted to go into the business, she said. Her younger brother's name was Ethan. He had gone a completely different direction and became a documentary filmmaker. She shook her head and went on. Dad says the company will probably be sold to a big conglomerate after he is gone. I could have told her that would not happen. I could have told her I would never allow it. I had spent years positioning myself to protect that company. Not because I liked Robert. He looked down on me most of the time. But because I respected what he built, even if he acted like he was the only one who mattered. Still, I said nothing. Then last month, everything finally boiled over. We were at a fundraiser for the Art Gallery of Ontario, the kind of event Hannah loved, and I simply endured. I was wearing a suit I had bought 12 years earlier. It still fit. It still looked fine. It did its job. Hannah's friend, Olivia, walked up with her husband, Grant. Grant owned a chain of successful restaurants, and he made sure everyone knew it without ever saying it straight out. Brian, Olivia said, doing that social greeting where she leans in and kisses the air near your cheeks. It is so good to see you. Grant was just saying we should all do dinner soon. Have you been to his new place on King West? Not yet, I said. She looked me over, not in a friendly way, more like she was measuring me. Then she glanced at Hannah, and her expression shifted into something that looked a lot like pity. Oh, you have to go, Olivia said. Although I suppose, she let the words hang there. Then she added, it is a bit pricey, but Grant can probably get you a discount. Hannah smiled, but it was tight and forced. That is kind of you, she said. Later, in the car, she stayed quiet for a long time. The kind of quiet that makes the whole vehicle feel smaller. Finally, I said, you okay? I am tired, she answered. Long day, I asked. She stared out the window. No, just tired. 2 weeks ago, I came home early and found her on the phone with her mother. Hannah was speaking low, like she did not want the words to reach the walls. The second she saw me, she ended the call fast. Everything all right? I asked. Fine, she said. Just checking in with Mom. But I saw her laptop sitting open on the kitchen table. On the screen was a real estate listing for a penthouse in Yorkville. The price was $3.2 million. It was way beyond what she believed we could afford. And that is what brought me to Friday night. The dinner her mother insisted on. The just family dinner. The kind of dinner where people say things they do not want witnesses for. I drove into the circular driveway at the Kingsley estate in my Volvo. It looked ridiculous sitting near the other cars already there. A Mercedes. A Range Rover. Big, polished, expensive, and proud of it. Their house was a stone mansion in Forest Hill. The kind of place that did not need to brag because the whole building whispered old money on its own. Hannah got out of the car without waiting for me. She smoothed her dress as she walked up, like she was trying to press the nerves out of the fabric. Her shoulders were tight. The muscles along her neck looked stiff. Patricia opened the door. She was elegant in a cream-colored silk outfit, like she had stepped out of a magazine. She kissed Hannah warmly, and then gave me a smile that did not quite reach her eyes. Hannah, sweetheart. Brian, she said. Come in. Your father is in the study. We walked through the house and found Robert standing behind a massive mahogany desk. He was pouring scotch from a crystal decanter like it was part of a ritual. He had on a cardigan over his dress shirt. The kind of relaxed look that still cost more than my entire car. There you are, he said. He handed Hannah a glass. Then he nodded toward another glass for me. Sit down, Robert said. Sit, Patricia, and bring out those appetizers, will you? We lowered ourselves into big leather chairs that looked like they cost 5 figures each. Robert did not rush. He sipped his scotch slow and steady, watching me like a jeweler studying a cheap stone somebody was trying to sell as a diamond. Finally, he spoke. Brian, he said, I want to talk to you about something important. Man to man. Hannah's fingers tightened around her glass. Of course, I said. Robert leaned back like he owned the air in the room. You have been married to my daughter for 8 years now. Yes, sir. And in those 8 years, he said, I have watched her compromise everything she was raised to expect. He lifted his glass a little, like he was making a point at a meeting. She lives in a small house in a middle-of-the-road neighborhood. She drives a car that is 7 years old. She works at an art gallery when she could be traveling the world and chasing her passions with no financial limits. Hearing him say it like that made my jaw tighten, but I kept my voice calm. She loves her work, I said quietly. She does it because she has to. Patricia cut in, coming back into the room with a tray of canapes. Because you cannot support her properly. Hannah stared down at her lap like she was trying to disappear. Now, Robert said, holding up a hand. Let us not be harsh. He looked straight at me again. Brian, I am sure you are doing your best. But the reality is my daughter married someone who cannot provide the life she deserves. And I think you know that. I took a sip of the scotch. It was smooth as silk. The kind of bottle you do not see unless you run with people who think $3,000 for liquor is normal. I knew exactly what it was, too. A 40-year Macallan. Robert watched me swallow. Then he said, so, here is what I am suggesting. I set the glass down. What exactly are you suggesting? I asked. He reached over to his desk and picked up a leather portfolio. He placed it in front of him like a judge getting ready to read a verdict. I am suggesting you both deserve a fresh start, he said. Hannah deserves someone who matches her station, her upbringing, her expectations. And you deserve someone who will not spend her whole life wishing you were more than you are. Then he slid the portfolio across to me. Inside, he said, are documents that will make this transition as painless as possible. I did not touch it yet. I just looked at it. I am prepared to offer you $5 million, Robert continued. A no-fault divorce. Clean break. No long court battle. You sign, you walk away financially secure. Hannah rebuilds her life, and we all move forward with dignity. The room went dead quiet. The only sound was an old clock ticking on the mantel, steady and cold. I opened the portfolio slowly. Inside were divorce papers already filled out. There was a check for $5 million. There was also a non-disclosure agreement. It said I would never discuss the Kingsley family with anyone. Not now. Not later. Not ever. $5 million, I said, running my finger along the edge of the check. Robert nodded like he was proud of himself. That is more than generous, he said. It is more than you would make in 3 lifetimes doing what you do. Dad, Hannah said softly. Her voice sounded strained, like she was trying not to crack. It is for the best, sweetheart, Patricia said, sitting close beside her. You have been unhappy. We can all see it. I looked at Hannah. Not the quick glance you give in a tense room. I mean, I really looked. Tears were sliding down her cheeks. Quiet tears. No sobbing. No wiping her face. Just tears. And the thing that hit me hardest was what she was not doing. She was not arguing with them. She was not defending me. She was not telling them they were wrong. She was crying because, deep down, she believed they were right. Because this was what she wanted too, but did not have the nerve to ask for herself. 8 years. 8 years of living inside a story I built on purpose. Not lies about my character. I never lied about what kind of man I was, but lies about what I had. 8 years of waiting to see if love could sit in the same room with money and still choose love. 8 years of hoping a simple life would matter more than luxury. I closed the portfolio and set my hands on top of it. That is a very generous offer, I said. $5 million is a lot of money. Robert's face loosened like he expected a handshake next. I knew you would be reasonable, he said. You are a good man, Brian. You have just been a poor fit for our family. I nodded once slow. The thing is, I said, keeping my voice steady, I am not sure $5 million is the right number. Robert's eyebrows lifted. I assure you it is more than fair, he said. If you are thinking of negotiating, I am thinking, I cut in, that you should probably call an emergency board meeting. Silence. I am sorry, Robert said. I pulled out my phone, opened an app, and turned the screen toward him. It showed the public information for his company, Kingsley Industries. Current stock price, $42.16. Market capitalization, $31.2 billion. Shares outstanding, 740 million. Robert stared at the screen, then at me. Yes, he said slowly. And I kept my phone facing him. So out of those 740 million shares, I said, how many do you think you and your family control? His posture changed. Not much, but I saw it. About 38%, he said. Why? And do you remember that anonymous shareholder your board has been trying to identify for the past 6 years? I asked. Patricia's face started to drain of color. The one who keeps blocking hostile takeovers, I continued, and keeps stopping acquisitions that I consider strategically unsound. Robert's mouth opened a little, then closed again. The one who owns 430 million shares, I said, which is 58% of your company. I watched the understanding spread across Robert's face the way sunrise creeps over Lake Ontario. Slow, steady, unavoidable. That would be me, I said. I let the words sit there. Brian Carter, I continued, your son-in-law, the financial consultant who, according to you, cannot provide for your daughter. Hannah's head snapped up so fast it looked like it hurt. What? She whispered. At the current market value, I said, my stake in your father's company is worth about $18 billion. Give or take a few $100 million, depending on how the Asian markets perform tonight. I set my phone down on the desk, right next to that $5 million check. The contrast would have been funny if it did not feel so ugly. That is impossible, Robert said. But his voice was not sharp anymore. It was thin, uncertain. Call Stephen Park, I said. Stephen Park was the company's chief financial officer. Smart guy, careful guy, and for 6 years, he had been quietly following instructions that came to him through my lawyers. Ask him about an investment group called North Star Holdings, I said. Ask him who really controls it. Ask him who has protected your company from 3 hostile takeover attempts. Patricia's hands trembled against her lap. Ask him, I added, who made sure you had the capital to expand into gene therapy research when the banks wanted to pull your credit line. Robert's hand shook as he reached for his phone. You are lying, Patricia said. But her voice did not have any real bite behind it. It sounded like she wanted the words to be true, not like she believed them. I am not, I said. I have been a lot of things in this marriage, but I have not been a liar. I did not make up a fake life. I just did not volunteer information nobody asked for. Hannah stared at me like I was somebody she had never met. You have been rich this whole time? She asked. Yes. How rich? She said, barely getting the words out. Very, I told her. Her eyes filled again, but this time it was not quiet sadness. It was shock mixed with hurt. And you let me think, she said. You let my parents think. Her voice broke in the middle. I wanted to know if you loved me, I said softly. I wanted to know if I could just be myself without my money turning everything into a mess. I needed to know if someone could care about me as a man, not as a wallet. You lied to me, she said. I shook my head. I wore old clothes. I drove an old car. We lived in a modest house. Those were choices. That is not the same as lying. I held her gaze. You never asked if I had more. You assumed I did not. Then you decided that was a problem. Robert's call was short, cold, straight to the point. I watched his face change while he listened. First disbelief, then shock, then anger, and finally, a kind of sick acceptance that looked like it aged him right in front of me. When he ended the call, his shoulders sagged. Stephen confirmed it, he said quietly. You are telling the truth. I usually do, I said. Patricia leaned forward, almost snapping. Why? She demanded. Why would you hide this from us? I tapped the leather portfolio with 2 fingers. Because of this, I said. Because I wanted one part of my life that was not about money. One relationship that was real. I looked around the room. I wanted somebody to love me because of who I am, not because of what I could buy them. That is cruel, Hannah said. That is manipulation. I let that sit for a second, then I answered. Is it? I said. I never stopped you from chasing your dreams. I never told you no when you wanted to do something meaningful. I never limited your spending beyond what looked reasonable for the income you believed we had. I spoke slowly, so nobody could twist what I meant. I never denied you anything you actually asked me for. Then I nodded toward her parents. What I did do was wait. I waited to see if you would choose me over the lifestyle you were raised in. That is not fair, she said. Maybe it is not, I admitted. But it is honest. I stood up and straightened my old suit jacket. It suddenly felt like it weighed 100 pounds. For 8 years, I said, I watched you get more and more disappointed in me. I kept my voice steady, but I felt every word. Not because I treated you badly. Not because I cheated. Not because I was cruel or careless. I pointed right at the problem. Because I did not have enough zeros in my bank account to satisfy what your parents thought their daughter deserved. That is not true, she said, but it came out weak. Is it not? I asked. I looked at her, and I did not look away. When is the last time you looked at me like you did when we first met? No answer. When is the last time my company was enough for you? Still nothing. When is the last time you defended me to your parents instead of sitting there in silence while they listed everything they think is wrong with me? She had nothing to say. Her mouth opened and closed, but no words came. I turned to Robert. I already gave my lawyers instructions, I said. I am going to start transferring my shares. Robert blinked hard. Over the next 12 months, I continued, I am going to fully divest from Kingsley Industries. You will keep family control. The company will stay stable. I shrugged once. And I will be free to invest in things that do not require quarterly dinners with people who think I am not good enough to breathe the same air as them. Wait, Robert said, standing up too fast. You cannot just. We have obligations. Shareholder agreements. I will honor all of it, I said. I am not trying to wreck your company. I kept my tone even, because I meant it. I never was. I protected it for years because, even with the way you treated me, I respect what you built. Then I added the part he did not want to hear. I just will not be insulted for doing it anymore. I looked at Hannah one last time. She was crying again, but these tears were different. Not just sadness, confusion, fear, like she was realizing her whole picture of our life had been drawn with the wrong colors. The divorce papers are fine, I said. Keep the house. Keep everything that is in both our names. I waved a hand at the check like it was nothing. I do not need any of it. And I will not accept the $5 million buyout. I met Robert's eyes. I think we all know that number is insulting to everybody in this room. I started toward the door, then stopped and turned back. For what it is worth, Hannah, I said, I did love you. My throat tightened, but I pushed through. I loved you enough to try to be simple and uncomplicated for you. I loved you enough to hope that would be enough. I nodded once. I am sorry it was not. The drive home should have felt like a victory lap. It did not. It felt empty. I had proved my point, sure. I had shown them they were wrong about me. But I had also proved something worse. Hannah and I were never going to work. Not because of money. Because we wanted different things at the deepest level. She wanted security and status. She wanted to walk into a room and know nobody could judge her. She wanted the comfort of being untouchable inside her social circle. I wanted something else. I wanted honesty. I wanted somebody who could see past the surface and still choose the person underneath. We both failed each other, just in different ways. 3 months later, the divorce was final. Hannah moved into a condominium her parents bought her in Yorkville. I sold the house in Leslieville and bought something smaller in the beaches, close enough to the water that I could hear it on quiet nights. Robert retired 6 months after that. And then, surprisingly, Hannah's younger brother, Ethan, stepped in as chief executive officer. Most people did not think he had it in him. Turns out he did. He was better at it than anyone expected. These days, I date once in a while. But now I am honest from the start. Not about exact numbers, not about every detail, but I tell the truth that matters. I tell them my financial situation is complicated and extensive. A lot of women lose interest fast when they hear that, and that is fine. At least now I know why. Sometimes I think about Hannah. I wonder if she ever regrets how things ended. I wonder if she ever thinks about those early mornings on the back deck, when we were just two people drinking coffee and watching the neighborhood wake up, back before expectations and disappointment filled up all the empty space between us. But most of the time, I feel calm. Those 8 years taught me something I needed to learn, even if it cost me a marriage. You cannot buy real connection, no matter how many billions you have. And you cannot build a real relationship on what somebody does not know about you. The greatest wealth is not in a portfolio. It is in being known, fully known, and still loved. I have not found that yet. But at 62, I am patient enough to keep looking. I am wealthy enough to wait for something real. And I am finally wise enough to understand what matters.